The private investigator slid the manila envelope across the coffee shop table. Mrs. Rodriguez, I have to warn you, what's in here is going to be difficult to see. I'd hired Marcus 3 weeks earlier to follow my husband. 15 years of marriage, and suddenly David was working late every Tuesday and Thursday. New cologne. Secret phone calls. The classic signs. I thought I was prepared for whatever proof Marcus had found. I wasn't. I opened the envelope and pulled out the first photograph. My husband David standing outside a restaurant I didn't recognize. The second photo showed him with a woman, their hands intertwined. The third showed them kissing in a parking lot. And the fourth photo, the one that made the entire coffee shop spin around me, showed the woman's face clearly. It was my sister, my younger sister Elena. I stared at that photograph for what felt like an eternity. Elena, who I'd helped raise after our mother died. Elena, who'd been my maid of honor. Elena, who came to our house every Sunday for family dinner. Elena, who I'd confided in about my marriage troubles, my worries about David's distance, my fears that something was wrong. She'd known exactly what was wrong, because she was what was wrong. Mrs. Rodriguez? Marcus's voice broke through my shock. There's more. The surveillance shows they've been meeting every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 11 months, and he hesitated. Last week, I followed them to a medical clinic, an OB-GYN. Your sister is pregnant? The coffee I'd been drinking came back up. I barely made it to the restroom before I was violently sick. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning and explain how my 15-year marriage, my relationship with my only sister, and everything I thought I knew about my life fell apart, and how I methodically documented every lie, every betrayal, and every secret until I had enough evidence to destroy them both. My name is Amanda Rodriguez, and I'm a high school English teacher in Houston, Texas. I've been teaching for 18 years, longer than I've been married. I love my job. I love my students, and for 15 years I loved my husband. David and I met when I was 25 and he was 28. He was a pharmaceutical sales representative with ambition and charm. He made me laugh. He was attentive and romantic. When he proposed after a year of dating, I said yes without hesitation. We had a good marriage. Not perfect. No marriage is, but good. We bought a house in the suburbs. We talked about having kids someday, though we kept putting it off. We took vacations, hosted dinner parties, and built what I thought was a solid life together. My sister Elena is 5 years younger than me. When our mother died of cancer when I was 19 and Elena was 14, I became more than her sister. I became her surrogate parent. Our father had left when we were young, and it was just the two of us. I helped her through high school, encouraged her to go to college, celebrated when she graduated with a degree in marketing. When David and I got married, Elena was part of the package. She was family. She came to our house regularly. She and David got along well, or so I thought. He'd joke around with her, tease her about her boyfriends, treat her like a little sister. I never suspected. Not once. Not until everything changed. It started about a year ago, in March 2025. David began working late. At first, it was 1 night a week, then 2, then 3. He'd come home at 9 or 10 p.m., claiming he had client dinners, meetings with doctors, paperwork to catch up on. I didn't question it initially. David's job involved a lot of client management. Long hours weren't unusual. But then, I noticed other things. He started showering as soon as he got home, even though he'd showered that morning. He bought new clothes, nicer shirts, better cologne. He was protective of his phone in a way he'd never been before, taking it with him even when he went to the bathroom. And he stopped touching me. We'd always had an active physical relationship, but suddenly, David wasn't interested. When I initiated, he'd make excuses. He was tired. He had an early meeting. He didn't feel well. By June, we were sleeping in the same bed like roommates. Polite, distant, strangers. I tried to talk to him about it, multiple times. He'd brush me off, say everything was fine, accuse me of being paranoid. When I pushed harder, he'd get angry, tell me I was being dramatic, that work stress was affecting him, and I was making it worse. So I stopped pushing, but I didn't stop watching. And I talked to Elena. She was my confidant, my sister, my best friend. I told her everything, how David was distant, how I felt like I was losing him, how scared I was that he might be cheating. She'd hug me and tell me I was overthinking it. She'd say David loved me, that all marriages go through rough patches, that work stress was probably the real issue. You guys are solid, she'd assure me. David adores you. He's just going through something. Give him time. I believed her. God help me. I believed every word. The breaking point came in late September. David told me he had a business conference in Dallas for the weekend. He'd be gone Friday through Sunday. But on Saturday afternoon, I was at the grocery store, and I saw his car parked outside a movie theater. I sat in my car for 30 minutes, waiting to see if he'd come out. He didn't. I went home and called the hotel where he'd said he was staying for the conference. "I'm sorry, ma'am," the front desk clerk told me. "We don't have anyone by that name checked in, and we're not hosting any pharmaceutical conferences this weekend." That's when I knew whatever was happening, David was lying. Elaborately. Deliberately. I could have confronted him. Part of me wanted to. But something stopped me. If David was cheating, I needed proof. Not just suspicions. Not just a car in a parking lot. I needed documentation. Evidence. Something concrete that he couldn't deny or explain away. So I hired Marcus Sullivan, a private investigator recommended by a colleague at school whose own divorce had involved infidelity. Marcus was in his 50s, former police detective, professional and discreet. "I need to know what my husband is doing when he says he's working late. I told him at our first meeting, I need proof." Marcus nodded. "I can do that. Fair warning, most of my clients don't like what I find. If your husband is cheating, are you prepared for that reality?" I thought I was. Yes. I need to know the truth. "All right, give me 3 weeks. I'll document everything, where he goes, who he meets with, what he does. You'll have your answers." That was the first week of October. For 3 weeks, I went through the motions of normal life. I taught my classes, graded papers, came home and made dinner for a husband who was lying to me with every smile, every kiss on the cheek, every "I love you." Elena came over for Sunday dinners. I watched her and David interact, laughing together, passing dishes, making small talk. I watched for signs, for anything that seemed off. I saw nothing. They were comfortable with each other, familiar, but nothing more than that. Or so it seemed. On Tuesday, October 22nd, I met Marcus at that coffee shop. He'd been following David for 3 weeks. He had photos, videos, detailed logs of everywhere David had gone, everyone he'd met. "Your husband is definitely having an affair," Marcus told me, before handing over the envelope. "He's been seeing the same woman twice a week for the past 11 months. Same restaurants, same hotels. They're not even being particularly careful. They go to public places, they don't hide." I took the envelope with hands that weren't quite steady. "Do you know who she is?" "I haven't been able to identify her yet, but I have clear photos." "You might recognize her." That's when I opened the envelope. That's when I saw the photos. That's when my entire world imploded. Because it wasn't just that my husband was cheating, it was who he was cheating with. My sister. The person I'd raised. The person I'd trusted with my marriage troubles. The person who'd hugged me and told me everything would be okay while she was sleeping with my husband. And she was pregnant. With his baby. The baby I'd never had. The baby we'd talked about having someday for 15 years. I sat in that coffee shop bathroom for 20 minutes, shaking and crying and trying to process what I'd just learned. This wasn't just infidelity. This was a complete and total betrayal by the 2 people I loved most in the world. When I finally emerged, Marcus was still waiting. He'd ordered me water and pushed it across the table when I sat down. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I've been doing this job for 12 years. This is one of the worst ones." "How far along is she?" My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. Based on what I observed at the medical clinic, I'd guess around 4 months. But I can't be certain. 4 months. Elena had been at Sunday dinner 4 days ago. We'd talked about her work, her apartment, whether she was dating anyone. She'd looked me in the eye and lied, just like she'd been lying for almost a year. "What do you need from me?" I asked Marcus. "Need from you?" "I want everything. Every meeting, every date, every hotel they've gone to. I want phone records if you can get them. I want financial records showing where David's been spending money. I want a complete timeline of this affair, documented and irrefutable." Marcus studied me carefully. "Mrs. Rodriguez, I understand you're angry, but this kind of comprehensive investigation gets expensive, and you already have proof of the affair for a divorce. What you have in this envelope is sufficient." "I don't care about the cost," I interrupted. "I have my own money. I have savings. And this isn't just about divorce. This is about making sure that when I'm ready to act, they can't deny anything. They can't minimize it. They can't make me look like I'm overreacting or misunderstanding. I want documentation so thorough that they have no choice but to admit exactly what they've done. He nodded slowly. All right, I can do that. It'll take time. I have time. They think I don't know. They think they're getting away with it. I'm going to let them keep thinking that while I build my case. I paid Marcus a substantial retainer and went home. David arrived at 7:30 that evening, claiming he'd been at a client dinner. How was your day? He asked, kissing my cheek like he'd done 1,000 times before. I smiled. Fine. Grading essays. You know how it is? We still on for Sunday dinner with Elena? My stomach twisted, but I kept smiling. Of course, I'll make the lasagna she likes. That was the first lie I told. The first time I played the part of the oblivious wife while plotting something else entirely, it wouldn't be the last. Over the next week, I did something I'd never done before. I searched my husband's belongings. I waited until he was in the shower and went through his wallet, his briefcase, his jacket pockets. I found nothing directly incriminating, no love notes, no suspicious receipts. David was careful. But I found his credit card statements in his home office. I photographed every page, every charge. There were hotel charges, restaurant charges, charges at stores I didn't recognize. I created a spreadsheet documenting dates, amounts, locations. I also installed monitoring software on our home computer, not spyware. I wanted to stay legal, but parental control software that logged what sites were visited and when. If David was communicating with Elena online from home, I wanted to know he wasn't, or at least not from our home computer. He was smarter than that. But his phone was another story. One night when he was asleep, I used his thumb to unlock it. I couldn't go through everything. He'd wake up if I was gone too long, but I took photos of his recent call log. The same number appeared over and over. I traced it. Elena's number. They'd been calling each other multiple times a day, every day, for months. Sunday dinner that week was excruciating. Elena arrived at 5 p.m., bright and cheerful, carrying a bottle of wine. She hugged me. She helped me set the table. She laughed at David's jokes. I watched them carefully. They didn't touch. They didn't make eye contact for more than a few seconds at a time, but there was something there, an awareness of each other, a careful distance that seemed deliberate. So Elena, I said as we ate, are you seeing anyone? She shook her head. Nope, still single. Dating scene is brutal out there. You'll find someone, David said. Right person will come along when you least expect it. Elena smiled at him, just a quick smile, but I saw it, and I saw the way his expressions softened in response. They'd been practicing this. These casual interactions, these normal conversations, this performance for my benefit. After dinner, Elena helped me clean up in the kitchen while David watched football in the living room. I'm worried about you, Elena said as she dried a dish. You seem stressed. Just work stuff. I lied. Budget cuts, larger class sizes, you know. Is everything okay with you and David? You guys seemed a little, I don't know, quiet at dinner? I nearly laughed. The audacity of this woman, asking me about my marriage while pregnant with my husband's child. We're fine, I said. Why do you ask? I just worry about you. You're my sister. I want you to be happy. I met her eyes. She looked sincere. Concerned, like a good sister should. I am happy. I lied. Everything's fine. That night after Elena left and David fell asleep, I went into the bathroom and cried silently for an hour, not just because of the betrayal, but because I had to pretend. I had to smile and hug and play along while my marriage crumbled and my sister carried my husband's baby. But I couldn't confront them yet. I needed more. I needed to understand the full scope of what they'd done. I needed documentation that would stand up in divorce court, that would protect my assets, that would ensure David couldn't paint me as an angry, paranoid wife. So I kept playing my part, and I kept investigating. Marcus provided weekly updates. He had logs of every meeting between David and Elena, photos of them together, video of them checking into hotels. He'd identified the restaurants they frequented, the medical clinic where Elena was receiving prenatal care. I paid for all of it with money from my personal checking account, the one David didn't have access to. Money I'd saved from teaching and summer school over the years, money that was mine alone. By mid-November, I had a 3-inch binder full of evidence. Photographs, credit card statements, phone records, GPS data from following David's car, a complete timeline of an 11-month affair. But I still didn't know how it started, why it started, how long they'd been planning to lie to me. That's when Marcus suggested something I'd been avoiding. If you really want the full picture, we could try to get audio. There are legal ways to do it. Recording conversations in public spaces, for example, or if you're part of the conversation. I thought about it. Recording them felt invasive in a way that surveillance photos hadn't, but I needed to know. I needed to hear them talk about me, about us, about what they'd done. How would we do it? I asked. You could wear a wire when you're with them, or I could set up long-range audio at one of their regular meeting spots. Public park, outdoor restaurant seating, somewhere they'd feel comfortable talking. I agreed to the park option. Marcus identified a location where David and Elena met twice, a secluded spot by Buffalo Bayou where they could talk without being overheard. On a Tuesday in late November, Marcus set up audio equipment near that spot, and David and Elena had a conversation that Marcus recorded. When I listened to that recording, I learned the whole sordid truth. Part 2. The recording started with rustling sounds, then David's voice. Are you feeling okay? Any morning sickness today? Elena's voice, soft and intimate in a way I'd never heard her use with anyone. A little, but it's getting better. Dr. Patterson says everything looks good. I wish I could have gone with you to the appointment. I know, but it's too risky. Amanda might find out. There was a pause. Then David, I hate this. Sneaking around, lying to her. Then tell her. Elena's voice had an edge to it. You keep saying you will, but you never do. It's complicated. The house is in both our names. Our finances are tied together. If I just tell her, she could make everything difficult. I need to talk to a lawyer first, figure out how to protect myself financially. I sat in my car listening to this recording for the third time, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles were white. He was worried about protecting himself financially. Not about hurting me, not about destroying our marriage, about money. When? Elena pressed on the recording. I'm 4 months pregnant, David. I'm going to start showing soon. You can't keep this secret forever. I know. I'll tell her after the holidays. Christmas is coming up. I don't want to ruin that for her family. We'll get through the holidays and then in January I'll sit her down and tell her I want a divorce. How considerate. He didn't want to ruin Christmas. And you'll tell her about us? Elena asked. I have to. She'll figure it out anyway once the baby comes. Another pause, then Elena, her voice smaller, do you think she'll hate me? David laughed, a sound without humor. Probably. You're her little sister. This is going to destroy her. I know. I feel terrible about it, but I can't help how I feel about you. I didn't plan for this to happen. Neither did I. But here we are. Here we are, Elena echoed, with a baby on the way and a really difficult conversation ahead. We'll get through it, David said. Amanda's strong. She'll be hurt, but she'll move on. People do. I turned off the recording. I'd heard enough. They thought I was strong. They thought I'd move on. They thought they could wait until after the holidays to tell me, on their timeline, in their way. They were wrong. That was late November. I had the evidence I needed. Now I needed a strategy. I took a personal day from school and met with 3 different divorce attorneys. I needed someone aggressive, someone who wouldn't let David manipulate the situation, someone who would fight for every dollar I was entitled to. The third attorney I met was Patricia Alvarez. She was 48, sharp-eyed, with a reputation for winning high-conflict divorces. Her office walls were covered with framed degrees and certificates. But what caught my attention was a quote on her desk, "Living well is the best revenge." Tell me everything, Patricia said after we shook hands. I did. I showed her the binder Marcus had compiled, photos of David and Elena together, credit card statements showing hotel charges and restaurant bills, phone records showing hundreds of calls between them. The timeline Marcus had created, documenting 11 months of lies. Patricia went through everything methodically, making notes. When she finished, she looked up at me with something like approval in her eyes. Mrs. Rodriguez, in 20 years of practicing family law, I have never seen a client come in this prepared. Most people confront first and gather evidence later. You did it the smart way. I'm a teacher, I said. I believe in doing my homework. She smiled. This level of documentation is going to make your case very straightforward. Texas is a community property state, but infidelity matters in divorce proceedings. It affects alimony, sometimes asset division, and definitely the court's perception of the parties involved. I want the house, I said. I want my retirement accounts protected, and I want him to pay. The house will likely require a buyout. Either you buy out his share or he buys out yours. But given his infidelity with your sister, and given that you can demonstrate financial contribution to the mortgage, we have a strong case for you retaining the house. We spent 2 hours going over strategy. Patricia explained Texas divorce law, talked about timelines and processes, discussed what I could expect. You have two options for how to proceed, she said. Option 1. We file for divorce, have him served with papers, and let the process begin. Clean, professional, no drama. Option 2. You confront him with what you know. Then we file, more emotionally satisfying, but potentially more complicated. I want to confront him, I said. And not just him, Elena too, together. Patricia raised an eyebrow. That's the dramatic option. They've been dramatic enough. It's my turn. All right, if that's what you want, we'll prepare the papers in advance. After you confront them, we'll file immediately. Don't give David time to hide assets or consult his own attorney first. I hired Patricia that day. Over the next week, she drafted divorce papers. We outlined a strategy for asset protection, discussed what I should and shouldn't say during the confrontation, planned for every contingency. In the meantime, I had one more piece of investigation to do. I wanted to understand how this had started. When had my husband looked at my 29-year-old sister and decided she was worth destroying our marriage over? When had Elena looked at David and thought betraying me was acceptable? I asked Marcus to do one more round of interviews, talk to David's coworkers, talk to Elena's friends, find out when this affair had actually begun. What he uncovered made everything worse. Marcus interviewed Greg Thompson, one of David's colleagues at the pharmaceutical company. Greg had worked with David for 5 years, had been to our house for dinner parties, knew both of us. David's been complaining about Amanda for at least 2 years. Greg told Marcus he'd tell me she was boring, that they'd fallen into a rut, that he felt trapped. I told him that's normal in marriage, that every relationship has rough patches, but he wasn't interested in hearing it. Did he mention Elena? Marcus asked. Oh yeah, started maybe 18 months ago. He mentioned Amanda's sister was at some barbecue they had, said Elena was fun, energetic, different from Amanda. I thought he was just making conversation, but then he kept bringing her up. Elena texted me this funny thing. Elena recommended this restaurant. Small things, but constant. Did you suspect something? I asked him straight out if something was going on. He laughed it off, said Elena was like a little sister to him. But I had a bad feeling. And then last year, around March or April, he stopped talking about Amanda altogether. Everything was about Elena. I knew something was happening. I remembered that barbecue. May 2024. I'd invited colleagues from school, neighbors, some of David's work friends. Elena had come, wearing a yellow sundress I'd helped her pick out. She'd helped me in the kitchen, laughed at everyone's jokes, charmed all our friends. That's where it started. A conversation at a backyard barbecue. My sister, in my house, at my party, flirting with my husband. Marcus also talked to one of Elena's friends, Sofia Gonzalez. Sophia had been reluctant to talk at first, but Marcus was persuasive. Elena told me she was in love with someone last summer, Sophia said. She wouldn't tell me who at first, just said it was complicated because he was married. I told her that was a terrible idea, that she needed to end it. What did she say? She said she couldn't. She said he was the love of her life, that she'd never felt this way about anyone. I thought she was being dramatic. Elena's always been dramatic about relationships. But then she told me who it was. When did she tell you? August, I think. We were having drinks and she'd had a couple glasses of wine and she just blurted it out. It's David, Amanda's husband. I was shocked. I told her she was making a horrible mistake, that she was going to destroy her family. How did she respond? She cried, said she knew it was wrong, but she couldn't help how she felt. She said David was going to leave Amanda, that they were going to be together, that everything would work out. Did she seem guilty? Sophia paused. Yes and no. She felt bad about Amanda, but she also had this conviction that this was meant to be, like she and David were star-crossed lovers or something. It was delusional. Delusional. That was the perfect word. My sister had convinced herself this was a romance instead of a betrayal, that she was the heroine of a love story, instead of the villain in someone else's marriage. I took all of this information, the interviews, the timeline, the evidence, and I prepared December 8th, Sunday dinner. That's when I would confront them both. The days leading up to that Sunday were surreal. I went to work, taught my classes, graded papers, David asked me what I wanted for Christmas. Elena texted me asking what she should bring to dinner. I responded normally, played my part, smiled when I was supposed to smile. But inside, I was counting down. On Saturday, December 7th, I prepared everything. I printed 3 copies of all my evidence, every photo, every credit card statement, every phone record. One for David, one for Elena, one for myself. I organized them into folders. I wrote out what I wanted to say, practiced it in the mirror. I also called my best friend Rachel. I'd told her everything 2 weeks earlier. After I'd hired Patricia, Rachel had been furious on my behalf, had offered to help in any way she could. "Are you sure you want to do it this way?" Rachel asked me now. "You could just have them served with papers. You don't have to see them." "I need to," I said. "I need them to look at me and realize that I know, that I've known for weeks. That while they were planning to tell me after Christmas, I was building a case against them." "Okay," Rachel said. "Call me after. No matter what time, I'll be here." Sunday, December 8th arrived. I woke at 6 a.m., too anxious to sleep. I cleaned the house, a nervous habit. I made Elena's favorite lasagna. I set the table for 3. David came downstairs at 8, saw me in the kitchen. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep," I said, which was true, just not for the reason he thought. "Everything okay?" I looked at my husband. 15 years of marriage. 15 years of trust and partnership and building a life together. And he'd thrown it away for my sister. "Everything's fine," I lied. Elena arrived at 5 p.m. Right on time. She hugged me, handed me a bottle of wine. "The house smells amazing." Lasagna, like always. She was wearing a loose sweater that hid her growing belly. 4 months pregnant. In a few more weeks, she'd start to show. I wondered if she'd planned to tell me before it became obvious, or if she'd just hoped I wouldn't notice. We sat down to dinner at 5:30, normal conversation. David talked about a difficult client. Elena talked about a new marketing campaign she was working on. I talked about my students' essays. We ate. We laughed at appropriate times. We were a family having dinner like we'd done hundreds of times before. Except this time, I knew the truth. After dinner, as I was serving coffee in the apple pie I'd made, I said, "I have something I want to show you both." I went to the sideboard and pulled out the 2 folders I'd prepared. Set one in front of David, one in front of Elena. David frowned. "What's this?" "Open them." They did. I watched their faces as they saw the first photo, David and Elena having lunch at a restaurant downtown, then the second photo, them holding hands in a parking lot, then the third, them kissing outside a hotel. The color drained from David's face. Elena's hands started shaking. "Amanda," David started. "I'm not finished," I interrupted, my voice calm, controlled. "I've known for 7 weeks, since October 22nd, when the private investigator I hired showed me proof that you've been having an affair for 11 months, an affair with my sister. My 29-year-old sister, who is currently 4 months pregnant with your child." Elena made a small choking sound. David just stared at me, mouth slightly open. "I have documented everything," I continued. "Every date you went on, every hotel you checked into, every dollar you spent on this affair. I have phone records showing you called each other multiple times every single day. I have recordings of you discussing how you were going to wait until after Christmas to tell me so you wouldn't ruin the holidays. I have statements from your coworkers and her friends. I have enough evidence to ensure that when this divorce goes to court, and it will go to court, you will lose." The silence that followed was deafening. Then Elena spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "You've known for 7 weeks?" "Yes, since October. I'd been sitting at these Sunday dinners, watching you both lie to my face while I gathered evidence." "Amanda, let me explain," David tried. "No," I cut him off. "There's nothing to explain. You had an affair with my sister. You got her pregnant. You planned to divorce me, but wanted to wait until you'd consulted a lawyer to protect your assets. You told your coworker I was boring. You made a choice, David, multiple choices, over 11 months, and now you live with the consequences." I turned to Elena. "And you, my little sister, the girl I raised after Mom died, the person I trusted more than anyone except my husband. You looked me in the eye every week and lied. You hugged me. You asked me about my marriage problems and gave me advice. And the entire time you were sleeping with my husband." Tears were streaming down Elena's face. "I never meant for this to happen. We fell in love." "Don't," I said sharply. Don't you dare call this love. Love doesn't betray. Love doesn't lie. Love doesn't sit at someone's dinner table, eating their food, accepting their kindness while destroying their life. It's not like that, Elena sobbed. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. I understand that you decided my husband was more important than our relationship. I understand that you got pregnant with his baby while I was worried about why our marriage was falling apart. I understand that you planned to keep lying to me for 2 more months because Christmas wasn't convenient. David finally found his voice. You had no right to hire someone to follow me, to record my conversations. I had every right, I said coldly. You're my husband. And Texas is a one-party consent state for recordings in public places. Everything I did was legal. Everything I have will be admissible in divorce court. And that's where this is going, David. Tomorrow morning you'll be served with divorce papers. His face went from white to red. You can't. I already have. I hired Patricia Alvarez 3 weeks ago. The papers are ready. By noon tomorrow you'll officially be served. Elena was crying harder now. Amanda, please. You're my sister. You're all the family I have. I was your sister, I corrected her. Past tense. You gave that up when you decided to sleep with my husband. You made your choice. Now you live with it. I stood up, picked up my purse. I'm leaving. David, you have until Friday to move out of this house. If you're not gone by Friday, I'll have the locks changed and your belongings put on the lawn. Elena, you're no longer welcome in my home or in my life. Don't contact me. Don't come to my school. Don't show up at family events. Where am I supposed to go? David demanded. I don't care. A hotel. Your office. Elena's apartment. Oh wait, that's probably where you've been going anyway. Figure it out. This is my house too. And we'll settle that in divorce court. Until then, I'm the one staying. You're the one leaving. I walked to the door, then turned back. By the way, I'm telling everyone, our families, our friends, everyone at your office, everyone who knows us. You don't get to control the narrative. You don't get to make me the villain. Everyone is going to know exactly what you both did. You can't, David started. Watch me. I walked out of that house and drove to Rachel's. She opened the door, took one look at my face, and pulled me into a hug. How did it go? She asked. Exactly as planned, I said. And then, finally, I let myself cry. The next morning, David was served with divorce papers at his office. I got a text from Patricia at 11 a.m. Papers served. He's not happy. Good. I wasn't happy either. That afternoon, I started making phone calls. I called my father, who I hadn't spoken to in years, but who deserved to know what his daughters had done. I called David's parents. I called our mutual friends. Each conversation was difficult in its own way, but I stuck to the facts. David had an affair with Elena. Elena was pregnant. I had evidence. I'd filed for divorce. The reactions varied. Some people were shocked. Some had suspected something. A few took David's side initially. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe we could work it out. Marriage is hard. To those people, I sent selected photos from my evidence binder. After that, they stopped suggesting reconciliation. David's parents called me horrified. Amanda, we had no idea. We are so sorry. I know you didn't know, I said. This isn't your fault. What can we do? Nothing. Just don't ask me to forgive him. I can't. My father called Elena. I don't know what he said to her, but she called me crying an hour later. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. Amanda, please, Dad won't talk to me. He's so angry. Please call him. Tell him I'm sorry. I deleted the message without listening to the rest. By Tuesday, David had moved out. He left a note on the kitchen counter. We need to talk about the house, the assets, everything. This doesn't have to be ugly. It was already ugly. He'd made it ugly when he slept with my sister. Patricia called me Wednesday morning. David's hired an attorney, Mitchell Barnes. He's good, but not as good as me. They're going to argue for an equal division of assets. Let them argue, I said. We have evidence of infidelity. We have proof he spent marital funds on the affair. We do. This is going to take time, but I'm confident we'll get you a favorable settlement. Over the next few weeks, more details emerged. I learned that David had taken Elena to restaurants we'd been to together, hotels where we'd celebrated anniversaries. He'd even taken her to a bed and breakfast in Austin where we'd spent our honeymoon. I learned that Elena had been asking our mutual friends about me, trying to gauge whether I suspected anything. She'd told people she was worried about me, that I seemed stressed, that my marriage seemed troubled. She'd been setting up the narrative, making herself the concerned sister, me the unstable wife, so that when the truth came out, people would already see me as the problem. It was calculated, deliberate, and it made me even angrier than the affair itself. I also learned something else, something that changed everything. In mid-December, I got a call from Marcus. "Mrs. Rodriguez, I thought you should know Elena had a doctor's appointment yesterday. I wasn't following her, but I happened to see her at the medical building. She looked upset when she left." "Okay," I said, not sure why this mattered. I did some checking. She went to Dr. Patterson's office. That's the OB-GYN she's been seeing for prenatal care, and this morning she called David 17 times. He didn't answer any of them. Something cold settled in my stomach. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying something might have happened with the pregnancy. I don't know what, but her behavior suggests something changed." I thanked Marcus and hung up. Part of me wanted to know what had happened. Part of me didn't care. Elena's problems weren't my problems anymore. But 2 days later, I got my answer. David called me. The first time he'd called since I'd kicked him out. "Amanda, we need to talk." "We don't need to do anything. Talk to my lawyer." "It's about Elena." I almost hung up. What about her? "She lost the baby." I was quiet for a long moment. "Last week, she had a miscarriage. She's not doing well." "That's unfortunate," I said, and I meant it. I wouldn't wish a miscarriage on anyone, but I also couldn't find it in myself to feel sympathy for her. "She wants to talk to you." "No, Amanda, she's devastated. She's your sister." "She was my sister. She gave that up. Whatever she's going through, it's not my responsibility. She has no one. I can't be there for her right now. My lawyer said it looks bad if I'm spending time with her during the divorce. Her friends won't talk to her. Dad won't talk to her. She needs family." "Then she should have thought about that before she slept with my husband." "Amanda, please." "No, don't call me about her again. Don't call me at all. Everything goes through Patricia." I hung up. I wish I could say I felt nothing about Elena's miscarriage, but the truth is, I felt a complicated mix of emotions. Relief that there wouldn't be a baby walking around who was half David, half Elena. Sadness that a pregnancy had ended that way, and guilt that I felt relieved. But mostly I felt nothing. Elena had made her choices. She'd prioritized her affair over our relationship. Whatever consequences she was facing now were the result of those choices. The divorce proceeded. David fought for the house, for half of everything. Patricia fought back harder. We went to mediation in January. David and his lawyer sat on one side of the table, Patricia and I sat on the other. It was the first time I'd seen David since that Sunday dinner. He looked terrible. Thinner. Dark circles under his eyes. Part of me took satisfaction in that. "My client is willing to offer a fair division of assets," Mitchell Barnes, David's attorney, began. 50-50 split of all marital property, including the house." "No," Patricia interrupted. "Mrs. Rodriguez is entitled to more than 50% based on your client's adultery and his use of marital funds to support his affair. We're prepared to document every hotel charge, every restaurant bill, every dollar he spent on his affair with his wife's sister." Mitchell shifted uncomfortably. "My client acknowledges the affair, but that doesn't change the fundamental property rights." "It does in Texas," Patricia said smoothly, "especially when the affair was with a family member and involved financial misconduct. We're prepared to go to court if necessary, but if we do, every detail of this affair will become public record. Every text message, every romantic dinner, every hotel room. Is that what your client wants?" I watched David's face. He looked at Mitchell, then at me. "What do you want?" David asked me directly. "I want the house," I said. "My retirement accounts stay mine. You get yours. I want alimony for 3 years while I rebuild my life. And I want an admission in the divorce decree that the marriage ended due to your infidelity." "That's ridiculous." "That's the offer," Patricia said. "Take it or we go to court and expose everything." We didn't settle that day, but 3 weeks later, after more negotiation, David agreed to my terms. He couldn't afford to have all the details of his affair with my sister made public, his job, his reputation, everything would suffer. He signed the papers in February. The house was mine, my retirement was protected. I got 3 years of alimony. The marriage was officially over. I wish I could say I felt victorious, but mostly I just felt tired and sad and ready to move on. But there was one more thing I needed to do. Part 3. In March, 3 months after I'd confronted them at that Sunday dinner, I got a message from Sofia Gonzalez, Elena's friend who Marcus had interviewed. Mrs. Rodriguez, I know you probably don't want to hear from anyone connected to Elena, but I thought you should know something. Elena's in a bad place. Really bad. She's not eating, barely leaving her apartment. I'm worried about her. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me, the part that had raised Elena, that had loved her as a sister, wanted to reach out, wanted to make sure she was okay. But the other part of me, the part that had been betrayed and lied to for 11 months, couldn't bring myself to care. I typed back, I appreciate you letting me know, but Elena is not my responsibility anymore. If you're worried, encourage her to see a therapist. I didn't hear from Sophia again, but I did hear about Elena through other channels. Houston is a big city, but our social circles overlapped enough that information filtered back to me. Elena had quit her job. She'd stopped going out. She'd gained weight, then lost too much weight. Her apartment was a mess. She was barely functioning. My father had tried to reconcile with her in February, invited her to lunch. According to what I heard, she'd shown up and cried through the entire meal, apologizing over and over. My father had listened, then told her he forgave her but needed time before he could have a real relationship with her again. Time. That's what everyone said she needed. Time to heal, time to move past this, time to rebuild. But some things don't heal with time. Some betrayals are too deep. David, meanwhile, was facing consequences of his own. In March, I got a call from Greg Thompson, David's coworker, who told Marcus about David's complaints about me. Mrs. Rodriguez, I wanted you to know David's been let go from the company. I was surprised. Because of the affair? Partially. But also because during the divorce proceedings, some financial irregularities came to light. David had been padding his expense reports, claiming personal expenses as business expenses. Hotel rooms for his affair, dinners with Elena, all claimed as client entertainment. I hadn't known this. Patricia hadn't mentioned it. How much are we talking about? Over $40,000 over the past year. The company's accounting department flagged it during a routine audit. When they started investigating, they realized the expenses coincided with his affair. He was fired for fraud. $40,000, money that could have gone toward our mortgage, our savings, our future. Instead, David had spent it whining and dining my sister and then lied to his employer about it. Is the company pressing charges? I asked. They're considering it. They want to make an example, show that this kind of behavior won't be tolerated, but nothing's decided yet. After I hung up, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Satisfaction that David was facing real consequences. Anger that he'd stolen from his company the same way he'd stolen from our marriage. And a kind of grim vindication that I'd been right to document everything, to fight for what I deserved. The news spread quickly. People who'd worked with David, who'd known us as a couple, who'd been at our house for parties and dinners, they all heard about the firing. And they talked. Some people were sympathetic to David. Everyone makes mistakes, they said. The affair was bad, but destroying his career seems harsh. But more people saw it for what it was, a pattern of deception. If David would lie to his wife for 11 months, if he'd steal from his company, what else was he capable of? His reputation was ruined. And unlike Elena, who could hide in her apartment, David had to face people, had to go to job interviews and explain why he'd been fired, had to tell potential employers about the fraud charges that might be coming. I should have felt triumphant. This was everything I'd wanted, both of them facing consequences, their lives falling apart the way mine had. But I didn't feel triumphant. I felt empty. In April, I started therapy. I'd been putting it off, telling myself I was fine, that I was handling things, but the truth was, I wasn't fine. I was functioning, going to work, paying my bills, maintaining my house, but I wasn't living. My therapist, Dr. Sarah Chen, was in her 50s, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense approach. Tell me about the betrayal, she said in our first session. Which one? I asked. My husband's or my sister's? Whichever one hurts more. I thought about it. My sister's. With David, I can tell myself that marriages fail, that people fall out of love, that these things happen. But Elena? She was my family. She was supposed to be on my side, always. And she chose him over me. Do you think you'll ever forgive her? No, some things can't be forgiven. Dr. Chen nodded. That's fair, but not forgiving doesn't mean not healing. You can move forward with your life without forgiving them. You can build something new. Over the next few months, therapy helped me understand something important. David and Elena's betrayal said nothing about my worth and everything about their character. I hadn't been boring. I hadn't been a bad wife. I hadn't failed at anything except choosing the wrong people to trust. In May, on what would have been our 16th wedding anniversary, I took off my wedding ring. I'd been wearing it out of habit, out of some misplaced sense of loyalty to a marriage that no longer existed. I put the ring in a box and put the box in a drawer. I didn't sell it. I wasn't ready for that, but I didn't wear it anymore. That same month, Rachel convinced me to join her book club. You need to get out, she said. You need to do something that isn't work or therapy or sitting alone in that house. She was right. I'd been isolating myself, avoiding social situations because I didn't want to answer questions about the divorce, didn't want people's pity or curiosity. But the book club was good. The women were kind without being intrusive. They talked about books, about life, about everything except my failed marriage. It was normal. It was human connection without complication. One of the women, Jennifer, was also divorced. She pulled me aside after the second meeting. It gets better, she said simply. I know it doesn't feel like it will, but it does. One day you'll realize you went a whole day without thinking about him. Then a whole week, and then you'll start thinking about what you want instead of what you lost. She was right. By June, 6 months after I'd confronted David and Elena, I was starting to feel like myself again. Not the same self I'd been before. That person was gone, but a new version, stronger, more cautious, more aware of who deserved my trust and who didn't. I redecorated the house, changed the paint colors, bought new furniture, rearranged rooms. I wanted to erase the memory of David from these walls, wanted it to be mine instead of ours. I started exercising again. Joined a yoga class, started running in the mornings before school. I needed to feel strong in my body the way I was learning to feel strong in my mind. And I started planning for the future. Not with someone else. I wasn't ready for dating. Might never be ready, but for myself. What did I want? What made me happy? I decided to pursue a master's degree in education. I'd been putting it off for years, always finding excuses. Now I had time. Now I had focus. In July, I heard through the grapevine that David had moved to Dallas. He'd finally found a job, though at a much lower salary than before. The fraud charges had been dropped after he'd paid back the company, but his reputation in Houston was beyond repair. Good. Let him start over somewhere else. Let him rebuild from nothing the way I was doing. I also heard that Elena had finally started therapy, that she was working part-time from home, doing freelance marketing work, that she was slowly, carefully putting her life back together. I felt nothing when I heard this. Not satisfaction, not anger, not pity, just nothing. She was a stranger now, someone I used to know. In August, almost a year after I'd hired Marcus to follow David, I ran into someone unexpected at the grocery store. Dr. Stephanie Patterson, Elena's OB-GYN. I recognized her from the medical building I'd driven past once during Marcus's surveillance. She recognized me too. She'd seen my photo on Elena's phone during appointments. Mrs. Rodriguez, she said carefully. I wasn't sure if I should say hello. It's fine, I said. And it was. I wasn't angry at Dr. Patterson. She'd been doing her job. I'm sorry about everything that happened, Dr. Patterson said. I know it's not my place, but Elena was one of my patients. I saw what the miscarriage did to her, and I know it all stemmed from what happened. The miscarriage wasn't my fault, I said quietly. It was a tragedy, but I didn't cause it. I know. I'm not saying you did. I hope you're doing okay. I am. Thank you. We parted ways, but that brief conversation stayed with me. Dr. Patterson had been sympathetic to Elena, had seen her suffering, and yet she'd still been kind to me, hadn't blamed me for not forgiving, hadn't suggested I was being too harsh. Maybe that's what moving forward looked like. Not forgiveness, but recognition that everyone involved in this mess was carrying pain. By September, the new school year had started. I threw myself into teaching with renewed energy. My students were my joy, my purpose. They didn't know about my failed marriage, my sister's betrayal. They just knew me as Miss Rodriguez, who loved literature and believed in them. One day in late September, a student stayed after class. Melissa Chen, a senior who'd been struggling with an essay assignment. Miss Rodriguez, can I ask you something personal? I was cautious. Depends on the question. How do you know when to trust someone? Like, really trust them? I thought about this. About David. who I'd trusted completely, about Elena, who I'd trusted even more. You can't know for certain, I said finally. People can surprise you in good ways and bad, but you can pay attention. Watch how people treat others. Watch whether their words match their actions, and trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. What if you're wrong? What if you trust someone and they hurt you? Then you learn, you heal, you become more careful. But you don't stop trusting everyone, because that's not living, that's just existing. Melissa nodded slowly. Is that what you're doing? Healing and learning? I smiled. Yes, that's exactly what I'm doing. In October, exactly 1 year after I'd hired Marcus, I did something I'd been avoiding. I went to the cemetery where my mother was buried. I hadn't been there since before the divorce. Somehow facing my mother's grave while my life was falling apart felt too hard, but now I needed to talk to her. I sat on the grass next to her headstone. Mom, Elena destroyed our relationship. She slept with my husband. She lied to me for almost a year, and I know you'd want me to forgive her. You always said family was everything. The wind rustled through the trees. I continued, but I can't. I've tried. I've thought about it from every angle, and I just can't forgive someone who looked me in the eye week after week and lied while sleeping with my husband. I can't forgive someone who took advice about my marriage troubles and used it to get closer to David. I was crying now. Does that make me a bad person? Does that mean I'm not as good as you were? Of course, there was no answer, just the wind and the birds and the quiet of the cemetery. But sitting there, I realized something. My mother would have been heartbroken by what Elena did. She'd raised us to love each other, to support each other. Elena's betrayal would have devastated her. And my mother would have understood why I couldn't forgive. She'd loved fiercely and expected loyalty in return. She'd taught us that trust, once broken, couldn't simply be glued back together. I left the cemetery feeling lighter. I'd been carrying guilt about not forgiving Elena, wondering if I was being too harsh. But I wasn't. I was protecting myself. I was maintaining boundaries. I was refusing to let someone who'd hurt me have access to hurt me again. That was strength, not weakness. In November, 1 year after Marcus had given me that manila envelope full of proof, I got an unexpected letter in the mail. It was from Elena. I almost threw it away without reading it. But curiosity won. Amanda, the letter began. I know you don't want to hear from me. I know I don't deserve your time or attention, but I need to say something, even if you never respond. I'm sorry. I know that's not enough. I know sorry doesn't fix anything, doesn't undo what I did, but I am truly, deeply sorry. I've spent this entire year trying to understand how I could have done what I did, how I could have betrayed you, the person who raised me, who loved me unconditionally. And the truth is, I was selfish. I was lonely. I convinced myself that what David and I had was special, was worth the cost. I was wrong. What we had was built on lies and betrayal. It wasn't special. It was destructive. I lost the baby. I lost you. I lost Dad's trust, my friends, my self-respect. I lost everything that mattered, and I deserve to lose it all. I'm not writing this to ask for forgiveness. I don't expect that. I don't even think I want it, because forgiving me would mean what I did was forgivable, and it's not. I'm writing this because you deserve to know that I understand what I destroyed. Our relationship, your marriage, your trust in family. I understand, and I will carry that knowledge for the rest of my life. I hope you're okay. I hope you're happy. I hope you found a way to move forward that doesn't include me in it. You deserved so much better than what David and I gave you. You still do. I love you, even though I have no right to say that anymore. Elena. I read the letter 3 times. Then I folded it, put it back in the envelope, and put it in a drawer. I didn't respond, but I also didn't throw it away. Maybe someday, years from now, I'd want to remember that Elena had understood the magnitude of what she'd done, that she'd taken responsibility instead of making excuses. But that day wasn't today. Maybe it would never come, and that was okay. In December, I spent Christmas with Rachel and her family. It was strange, celebrating without David, without Elena, without the family dinners that had been tradition for so long. But it was also peaceful. No tension, no lies, no performance of happiness while everything crumbled underneath. Just genuine warmth and connection with people who cared about me. You seem better, Rachel said as we sat by her fireplace after her kids had gone to bed. Lighter, I am, I said. I think I'm finally through the worst of it. What's next for you? Graduate school in the fall, maybe some travel this summer. I've always wanted to see Europe. And just living. Being present in my life, instead of living in the past. I'm proud of you, Rachel said. What you went through would have destroyed some people, but you're still here, still standing. I'm still here, I agreed. Maybe not the same person I was, but here. As the year ended, I reflected on everything that had happened. A year ago, I'd been married. I'd had a sister I loved. I'd believed I knew the people closest to me. Now I was divorced, estranged from my only sibling, living alone in a house that used to be full of shared memories and was now just mine. But I was okay. More than okay. I was learning who I was outside of being David's wife, Elena's sister. I was discovering strengths I didn't know I had. I was building a life that was authentically mine. The betrayal had broken me, but I'd put myself back together, and the woman I'd become was stronger than the woman I'd been. In January, as I started my second year post-divorce, I was contacted by a woman named Michelle Torres. She'd been David's colleague at his new job in Dallas. Mrs. Rodriguez, I'm sorry to bother you. I found your contact information online. I need to tell you something about your ex-husband. My stomach sank. What did he do? He's been pursuing me. Asked me out multiple times. I told him I wasn't interested, that I don't date coworkers. But he's been persistent. And when I researched him online, trying to figure out if he was dangerous or just annoying, I found articles about your divorce, about his affair with your sister. I'm sorry he's harassing you, I said, but I'm not sure what I can do. I'm not asking you to do anything. I just wanted you to know he hasn't changed. He's still the same person who lied to you, and I wanted to thank you. Thank me? For documenting everything. For making sure the truth was public. Because if it wasn't, I might have said yes to a date with him. I might have believed his story about why his marriage ended. But because you made sure people knew the truth, I knew to stay away. After we hung up, I sat with this information. David was in Dallas, supposedly rebuilding his life, but he was still the same person, charming, manipulative, unwilling to take responsibility. I thought about reaching out to warn other women, but that wasn't my job. I'd told my truth. I'd made the facts available. What people did with that information was up to them. My responsibility was to myself now, to my healing, to my future. And that future was looking brighter every day. Today, as I finished telling this story, it's been 2 years since I walked out of that house after confronting David and Elena. 2 years since my life fell apart and I had to rebuild from the ground up. I'm finishing my master's degree. I'm teaching students who inspire me daily. I have friends who genuinely care about me. I have a life that's mine, built on my terms without lies or betrayal. I don't hate David anymore. I don't hate Elena. Hate requires too much energy, too much attention. They're just people who used to be in my life and aren't anymore. Sometimes people ask me if I regret how I handled things, if I wish I'd been kinder, more forgiving, more willing to reconcile. I don't, because what they did required consequences, required boundaries, required me to stand up for myself in a way I'd never had to before. I documented their betrayal methodically. I built a case that protected me financially and legally. I told the truth publicly so they couldn't control the narrative. Some people think that makes me vindictive, but I think it makes me strong. Because here's what I learned. When someone betrays you, especially someone you love, you have every right to protect yourself. You have every right to demand accountability. You have every right to walk away and never look back. Forgiveness isn't mandatory. Reconciliation isn't required. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is document the truth, take what's yours, and build a new life without the people who destroyed the old one. That's what I did, and I don't regret a single moment of it. If you're going through something similar, if someone you trusted has betrayed you, know this. You are stronger than you think. You deserve better than lies and deception, and you have every right to fight for yourself, your truth, and your future. Don't let anyone tell you that you're being too harsh, too unforgiving, too vindictive. Protecting yourself isn't cruelty. Standing up for yourself isn't revenge. It's survival. It's dignity. It's reclaiming your life. And that's exactly what I did. My name is Amanda Rodriguez. I'm a high school English teacher. I'm a graduate student. I'm a friend, a daughter, and someday, maybe, I'll be more. But most importantly, I'm someone who survived betrayal, demanded accountability, and came out the other side stronger than before. This is my story. This is my quiet reckoning. and I'm still standing. Thanks for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, if you've been betrayed, if you've had to rebuild, if you've ever wondered whether standing up for yourself makes you the bad guy, please share this story with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe to The Quiet Reckoning for more stories about people who refused to be victims, who documented their truth, and who came out stronger on the other side. Because sometimes the quietest revenge is simply surviving, thriving, and refusing to let someone else's betrayal define you. Until next time, remember you are stronger than you think, you deserve better than lies, and your life is yours to reclaim.